the mitochondria burn the fuel that you eat, right? And keep that in mind, because what you eat then matters. This goes to the whole concept of the diet we talked about. So when people say eat this and don't eat this, people should think that what you eat directly goes to the mitochondria and affects the functioning of the fundamental organelle in your body. That's how fundamental diet is to your health.
Welcome to the Mind Health 360 show. I'm Kirkland Newman, and if you, your loved ones, or clients suffer from mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, insomnia, poor memory, poor attention, mood swings, exhaustion, etc., I interview the leading integrative mental health practitioners from around the world to help you understand the root causes of these symptoms, many of which may surprise you and suggest solutions to help you heal. If you like this interview, please do subscribe and forward to others who might find it helpful. If you want further information, please go to www.mindhealth360.com or find us on social media. Dr. Sundeep Dugar, thank you so much for being here on the Mind Health 360 show, and I'm thrilled to have you. And you, as by way of background, you have an incredible background. You are the co-founder at the mission and science-based nutraceutical startup Blue Oak NX Inc. You're both a scientist, a researcher, and inventor of two very successful pharmaceutical drugs. You have over 35 years of experience in small molecule drug discovery and development, and inflammation, the central nervous system, oncology, cardiovascular, and metabolic disorders. You're the author of over 70 publications and presentations and the co-inventor of over 100 issued and applied patents. So that's very, very impressive. And what I'd love to do is talk to you a little bit about, so first of all, this startup, which I know is has been built around this incredible discovery that you've made about this molecule that is revolutionary for mitochondrial health. And also in the context of, this mental health podcast, essentially, I'd love to explore a little bit about the mechanisms of, mitochondrial function for mental health and sort of how this fits in. And when I say mental health, I mean both psychiatric but also neurological health, which I know is particularly important in terms of the health of the mitochondria and the function of the mitochondria. So how did you start this wonderful startup, which is both science and mission driven? And tell us about this revolutionary molecule you've discovered.
Well, Kirkland, first, thank you for having me. This is such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And you're right, mitochondria is the essence of life. I think the more we learn about it, the more we figure out that this is an amazing, amazing organelle in our system that keeps us healthy. Just prelude to this thing, I have been fortunate over my years in this area to be collaborating and having other people in my life who have contributed to this. So let me say this, that while I am here speaking with you, I bring the knowledge and the wisdom and the contributions of many, many people over the years that have helped me get things done or achieve what I have achieved. So I want to be thankful to those people, first of all. They know who they are, and it'll take your entire show for me to name them. So let's go. Now, as you mentioned, I've been pretty fortunate both in terms of science and in terms of commerce over the years. And about a couple of years ago, as I was trying to figure out what to do towards, my next phase in life, I met up with two great colleagues of mine, Monica and Sonia, and who, in their own respect, are amazing achievers. And one of the things we really combine towards is the idea of making therapies affordable and accessible. In that context, we started to speak about what to do, how to do it, and that led to the genesis of Blue Oak NX. Now, believe it or not, they are not from the pharma world, but they are mission driven. And we thought this was a great combination of mission driven partners and someone like me from the pharma to come together and achieve what we wanted to achieve. We met for 8 months every week. Yes, every week for 8 months. And they took the time to really understand what I was talking about. And then we decided to go after Blue Oak NX. I will speak a little bit about Blue Oak NX, and then we can dive deeper into the mitochondrial side. So Blue Oak NX, we decided will be a mission-driven. It's a public benefit company. We are very clear about how we want to progress this company and its product towards patients or users or whoever they are in many areas or other areas where the needs are, and globally it becomes accessible. So that's who we are. Now, talking about the mitochondria, this is of course, as we know, that this is the reason we have life on planet Earth. It is an amazing organelle. Almost 25% of your cell volume is the mitochondria. It has its own genome. It's a short genome, and it comes from the mother. Does not come from the father. So while we have the nuclear genome, that is a combination of the genome of the mother and the father, the mitochondrial genome is only from the mother. And the mitochondria is actually through an endosymbiosis, as we have postulated or hypothesized, happened about 2.5 billion years ago, where if you think about it, it's the waste product of the mitochondria is fuel for the cell. So it was an amazing symbiotic relationship between two cells that created the modern eukaryotic cell we know of. And this excess energy allowed the single cell eukaryotic cells to then evolve into the multicellular organisms we know today. And what is important and relevant here is that the system works on the fundamental principles of thermodynamics. All right. So its only option is what it does is the mitochondria burn the fuel that you eat. Right. And keep that in mind, because what you eat then matters. This goes to the whole concept of the diet we talk about. So when people say eat this and don't eat this, people should think that what you eat directly goes to the mitochondria and affects the functioning of the fundamental organelle in your body. That's how fundamental diet is to your health.
It's so interesting because I'd never thought of it that way in terms of nourishing the mitochondria, as opposed to just, you think of diet as in for your gut or but you don't really break it down like that and think actually what, that is the fuel that you're putting into your mitochondria, which are the main energy, providers of your whole cells, right? Yeah.
So the way I think about it is that if you have a fireplace and you burn good hardwood, you get good clean fire. You burn softwood, you get fire, but a lot of smoke. Right? So the idea here is that what we eat really matters. Its productivity and the collateral debris and the consequences. So as we think amongst ourselves, I think one of the narrative we should say, your food is the nourishment for your mitochondria, which is the most critical thing in your body. Because here are the facts. Mitochondria make ATP. Okay? Without that, nothing happens in the cell. Your genes will not make the proteins. Your cells will not have the signaling processes. Nothing will happen without ATP. Now, you don't store ATP. So you just moved your hand and you produced some extra ATP for you to be able to move your hand.
Interesting.
It's that instantaneous. Your body, every movement, every action, and every second, your mitochondria are responding to that.
That's amazing. So I just have a couple of questions. So I
Yeah.
think I'm moving my hand again. So the
Yeah,
first,
that's good. It's good exercise. It's keeping your mitochondria working.
but is that okay? So I have a few questions. The first
Yes.
thing is that a good thing? So the more ATP, because presumably, so ATP, what you're saying is the waste product of the mitochondria, essentially, is
Quote
that's
unquote.
quote
Yes.
unquote.
Yeah.
But then we use it for fuel. So that's
Yeah.
the wonderful sort of symbiotic relationship. So it's their waste product, but our fuel, sort of like, photosynthesis in reverse. Um, and then, so this energy we cannot store it. We can only use it as we produce it. So it's an ongoing thing. So our capacity to produce it is absolutely essential to being able to then use it. And so the more we have a capacity to produce ATP, the more then we can use it in all our metabolic processes that, to just get us through life.
You got it. Exactly. And so now think about it, that when you reach about age 20, 21, your growth phase is over. Okay. So before I go there, what is interesting is the only way that we know of, as up until a few years ago, to make more ATP, which would mean you make more mitochondria, was through exercise. All right. So this is why people say exercise is good for you. All right. Perhaps we'll talk about that. And if you ask people, what happens when you exercise? Why is it good for you? What is the fundamental process that happens? We couldn't tell you. But perhaps that is what I will try and tell you. We think we have discovered what happens when you exercise and what this molecule that Blue Oak NX is talking about has the association to mitochondria. So that's the nutshell. That's a kind of a preview I'm giving you. But to come back to the point of exercise and your mitochondria, at age about 21 is about you have peak mitochondrial level. And part of it is, think about it, that your body is growing. It's kind of an internal exercise. So the body needs energy to grow, and the body has the capacity now to keep making more mitochondria to keep supporting your growth phase. Because your bones are growing, your muscles are growing, your brain is growing, everything is growing, and you need the energy for that. And that internal exercise produces the mitochondria. At the age of about 21, you're done growing. From then on, it's a downslope. You lose 10%, 15% of mitochondria every decade. Okay? So that's aging. You slow down, your metabolism slows down, etc. Your strength, muscle strength goes down, so on and so forth.
And is that because you're losing mitochondria? So you have fewer mitochondria? Is that the
Yes.
mechanism?
Yes.
Okay. You have fewer.
Yeah, because it's a very simple association. Low energy, low function, right? So the body decides to make its own internal choices. It will preserve critical function and will not preserve non-critical function. So it's important for your brain to function, but it's not so important for you to be able to live 150 pounds. That's not so important.
Yeah.
Correct? So the only opportunity we have to reverse that is exercise.
Yeah.
And sorry, and at the same time, put the right fuel in your body. Two things. You have to exercise and keep eating the right food. And guess what we do not do? Both of them.
And that was actually just what I was going to say. I was going to say, okay, it's exercise and food. And then in terms of the type of food, though, is there a specific type of food that you know is much better for your mitochondria than others? And are there foods that are damaging to your mitochondria?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of work has been done by people. Two of our advisory board members, Professor Rob Lustig and Dr. Rick Johnson, have done a lot of work in the area of food. Sugar is not good for you. Okay. Now, that does not mean you don't need glucose, because glucose is relevant for the brain and is relevant for mitochondrial function. But it's not the idea that sugar can replace fat. What we need is fat. So think about us as being more a fat-burning phenotype. And here's a simple equation. If you take one molecule of glucose, it will produce maybe 8 ATP, give or take. If you take one molecule of fat, and I'm oversimplifying, so I apologize, but if you take one molecule of fat, you'll produce over 38 molecules of ATP.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
But the process of fat to that ATP is longer. It takes a bit more time. The process from sugar is fast. So we need sugar. Evolutionarily, if you think about it, if there was suddenly a dangerous cobra behind you, you would have to run immediately and fast. At that point, you don't have the time to produce energy through fat. That's when you rely on glucose.
Interesting. Got it.
As you keep running, your fat takes over.
Interesting.
And that is the part that gives human the endurance. We have an amazing ability of endurance. We didn't kill woolly mammoth by fighting them. We just ran them to exhaustion.
Really? I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So we have the capacity to run 32 miles on a marathon.
Yeah.
Most animals can't do it.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, well, that's extraordinary. So basically, what you're saying is, so we know that mitochondria are important because they're the essence of the fuel that all our cells run off. We know that there are two things that feed mitochondria. One is exercise, and one is the right types of food and less of the wrong types of food. And fats, you're saying, presumably certain types of fats are particularly
Yes.
good for mitochondria, but you can't completely ignore the glucose side of things.
Correct.
So you need some of that as well. And then what about how do mitochondria, what's their role in the biochemistry, whether it's for cardiovascular health or whether it's for metabolic health or whether it's for mental health? Obviously, we're particularly interested in mental health, but why is it that having strong and healthy mitochondria that are producing a lot of ATP is so important for these different areas specifically, but also specifically mental health? Like, what's the mechanism? Is it inflammation? Is it just the ATP, the energy in the cells? Like, what's the actual mechanism?
So that's a very important question, and I'll try to address it. And I will profess not that we don't understand the entire picture yet, but often we approach diseases through a reductionist concept, correct? Because we say, okay, you have high levels of GABA in your synapse to associated with this particular thing. One has to ask what is happening behind it. Okay. And we keep asking, why is inflammation happening? Okay. We should ask, why is mental health issues coming up? And if you keep going down deeper and deeper, at the end, it'll lead you to the mitochondria. So this is more a thought and a hypothesis, not necessarily based on science, but it's logical argument that states that we have a genotype, okay? We are 7 billion plus individuals. There's no second Kirkland on planet Earth, right? But we all have the mitochondria. That's one commonality we have. And the mitochondria produces the energy which our gene profile uses to give us the phenotypic profile we have. Okay? This defines our size and our shape and our whatever have you, correct? Now, over the years, as you go on and you have an additional insult, right? It could be a gene mutation. It could be your environment. It could be a constant food you eat. Okay. So as you grow on, and this insult is putting an added challenge to your mitochondria because it has to deal with it. Our bodies have an inherent capacity to heal. Okay. When we break a bone, all we do is put a plaster and the body heals itself. Right? When you get a cut, it heals itself. Those entire processes of healing are managed by the mitochondria. Okay? So if you think about it, when you have a chronic insult and you are constantly challenging the mitochondria, you're increasing the overall deficit in your system. Okay? So if you're living a healthy life, you have X amount of your mitochondria. If you have an endogenous insult like a gene defect or an exogenous insult, say your diet, you are putting an added challenge. And your mitochondrial levels perhaps are lower than your peers. When that happens, your genetic profile dictates or potentially can dictate the outcome of the disease you get. Now, we know research is being done even in mental health. So think about this in a way. Not everybody who eats a lot of sugar will get diabetes. Some will. But why is that? And because the deficit is the same, but the fundamental genotype now dictates. We know very clearly now that people who have metabolic disorder have worse outcome for cancer. Okay. So the whole concept is that when we provide an additional insult to our mitochondria, above and beyond our natural decline, based on our habit and lifestyle, all our genotype, we will further reduce things, and that manifests itself to your phenotype or your pathology, and your genotype is dictating it.
That's so interesting. And then your genotype presumably dictates also, the epigenetics. So basically,
Exactly.
how you will take the insults that come your way that are exogenous. So whether it's a bad diet or whether it's toxins or whether it's lack of exercise or whatever it is, how you react to that will be dictated by your genotype.
Exactly.
Yeah. Got it.
And mental health, as we know, has correlations within families. Okay. But it could also be you know, idiopathic in certain patients or certain cases. But the role of bioenergetics is still fundamental. And a lot of good new research is continuously telling us that. And we know that if you give people ketogenic diet, they respond better. Well, what is it? Ketogenic diet is good fuel for your mitochondria.
Completely. And so, what are, just to quickly summarize, what are these insults to your mitochondria? Like, what are the key insults? You mentioned poor diet. You mentioned obviously probably lack of exercise, given the exercise is, is very salutary to the mitochondria. But what are the other key things that we're doing in our modern lives that are affecting our mitochondria negatively?
One is pollution.
Yeah.
Okay, our environment, pollution. We know particulate matter. We are so focused on carbon capture, we forget the bigger problems of particulate matter in urban living. We are breathing it in, we are taking it in. That affects the mitochondria. So the environment, our diet, our exercise, and of course, our genotype. Inherently, unfortunately, there are instances where we have kind of a malfunction in our mitochondria, right? So, but if you think about it, very few things really affect the mitochondria, and evolutionarily it makes sense. Because if you had too many things affecting mitochondria, we wouldn't have survived. So over time, we have evolved where there's some very fundamental things that affect mitochondria. And if we change that, you will improve health. That's called salutogenesis, word coined by a colleague of ours, Bob Navio at UC San Diego, talking about our internal capacity to heal itself.
Yeah, and he's also the guy who came up with the cell danger response, which is
Exactly.
so
CDR,
important.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's interesting. So there's a sort of evolutionary capacity that makes mitochondria, maybe more resilient to all these external insults. One of the things that you hear a lot is, how bad stress is for us, how terrible stress is. Does stress affect the mitochondria?
Again, because stress uses up excess brain power and energy. Again, it's just providing and your body to provide dysfunctional outputs. Okay, so it's the same thing. So associated with mitochondria are the processes of hormesis, right? You have a very strict hormetic control, right? And the body controls how much mitochondria energy it should produce. I mean, think about this, that your body, basal body temperature is 98.4 degrees, 0.4 degrees. If you go up by 0.6 degrees Fahrenheit, at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, you're febrile. You're not feeling good. At 101, you have a fever. It's only 1.6 degrees Fahrenheit above. And that's why when we talk about environmental challenges and we talk about 1 degree Celsius, that's a huge deal. It's like the earth having a fever constantly. We do not appreciate that this hormesis is so pivotal to our health and our survival. And in our body, it's the mitochondria that control it, not your genes.
When you say hormesis, so hormesis though are positive stressors, right? Right. And so we're talking about and positive stressors take you out of your homeostatic state. So your homeostasis is where, things are pretty healthy, and then you have a hormetic stressor which then takes you out of homeostasis. And then you basically need you need presumably healthy mitochondria to be able to return to that homeostatic state.
Yeah. Or elevate your homeostatic state, right?
Got it.
And what is a perfect stressor? Exercise.
Yes, absolutely.
And
And
it's
and
both physical and mental. So if you read, if you exercise your brain, by reading, doing mental activity things, that's also an exercise.
And you
And
think that is that the most pivotal way of boosting your mitochondria? If you were to isolate one way that would have the most salutogenic effect on your mitochondria, would it be exercise?
yes,
It would
Quint,
be.
nothing is more basic, fundamental than exercise. And this is where the punchline comes in. And um, we asked that question for a long time. So early on, when you said, Sandy, what got you interested in this? I did not know much about mitochondria till about 2008 or so. Okay, I was stuck in my reductionist system developing inhibitors and agonists till I came across the mitochondria through some work that were done by some cardiologists at UC San Diego. Perhaps not for today, but the question I asked was, why is this compound doing what it was doing in humans? The genesis of this work started with the human data, and we took it back to understand. And we've been trying to understand it for 16 years. And even there's so much more to learn. And what we figured out was that mitochondria make a specific steroid when you exercise. So when people say, well, exercise and it makes you feel good, right? You call the runner's high or whatever. So people think those are endorphins. No, you're not exercising that high to release endorphins. Okay. But your legs are moving. Why is your brain feeling better? Okay. What is the process through which, when you lift weights, your muscles get stronger? Yes, they do. We know that. But what happens? And it's all mitochondria. And over the 14 years, we have done multiple studies preclinically and in humans to show through electron microscopy, through biomarkers, through clinical readouts, that this molecule that the body makes when you exercise has all the pharmacology that would explain the benefits you see. We can connect the dot between exercise and muscle growth, and exercise and mental well-being, and exercise and endurance, etc.
So all because of this one steroid molecule, essentially. It's not because of the ATP production, and it's not
That leads to it.
okay,
So
that leads to it. Got it.
what this steroid does is the signal for the cell, hey, we need more energy. Okay? What this molecule does then, and without going into the details of it, this molecule comes and protects the current mitochondria you have. First, protect what you have so that during this, what we call the hormetic stress, these mitochondria are not damaged. And it also then signals to the nucleus, say, let's make more mitochondria without the cells dividing. Because remember, when the cells divide, the cells make more mitochondria because each daughter cell should be the same as the parent. But this is a signal to the cell, oh, we're not dividing, we need more energy. So please make more mitochondria, and I'm also going to protect the current mitochondria from damage because of this stress.
Interesting.
And when it makes more mitochondria, Kirkland, that leads to more ATP. You burn fuel because remember, you lose weight because you are more mitochondria, you're burning more fuel. All right. So you lose weight. You make more muscle because muscle is what is needed for you to do the exercise. All right. I mean, I can go on and on and on for this because it is such a fascinating organelle. I'll give you a very brief. So when you lift weights, you create these micro tears in your muscle. Okay. And that is the growth pattern. So that muscles have to have a micro tears, And when they repair, they grow more muscle. And as soon as you grade the mitochondrial tear, on these type areas, the mitochondria congregate around these mitotears.
So then
And
the
then
body produces more mitochondria to repair the tears.
and grow the muscle. So you have more strength. At the same time, they're producing the fuel. So you keep running. Remember, I mentioned endurance. In old historical times, Mayans who gave us cacao, right? Two groups in Mayan culture were allowed to drink cacao. The royal family and the messengers that carried messages from village to village. And you scratch your head and you say, why? Until you realize they knew the endurance power of cacao.
Interesting. That's
Now,
fascinating.
so over the years, I've learned a lot of these interesting parts of the thing. So cacao has this specific ingredient that is in blue oak product. And what we have found is that this natural product that has been in human diet for over 5,000 years mimics the activity of this steroid.
Interesting.
Which means we can be as lazy as you want.
Well, that's very exciting.
That's not the message we want to put out there, but in cases where people cannot exercise, so there are conditions. So to be, thoughtful about this is there are kids who have diseases. There are people with mental health who are so in a place that they cannot exercise. What do you do with them? This is what our hypothesis is, and in many studies we have established that, yes, it does have that effect.
So basically, just to recap, so what you have done is you yourself as a scientist or a group of scientists or other people have isolated this steroid that essentially leads to then the production of larger mitochondria, more mitochondria, which then leads to the production of more ATP, more energy. And what you found after discovering this steroid was that
It was the other way around.
It was the other way around. Okay.
Right. And I'll tell you why that led to, because we found this study that was being done at UC San Diego. And then I am a chemist and I believe in structural basis of science. Okay. And we kept asking the question. And in cacao, what we found was this only one molecule that had this effect. None of the others did.
Interesting.
So, and actually some of the others inhibit the activity of this one molecule. Okay. So we figured it, and it was structurally the one molecule that did it. That led to me that there was a very specific target that this thing was going after. And because I'm a chemist, I decided that if it is something endogenous, this thing had the footprint of a steroid. Okay, the size of the steroid. And I said, steroids are fundamental hormones in our body, signaling systems. So is there a steroid? That could be it. So one day I simply drew a potential steroid that could be it. We made it. And since then, I'm still on heaven because the data was incredibly good. It was unbelievably real. And that led to this association and understanding of the thing. And by the way, this is not so fantastic because steroidogenesis, the synthesis of all your steroids, all your hormonal steroids, it starts at the mitochondria. Okay? So mitochondria is the first step. So it is not so fantastic to think about mitochondria having the capacity to make a steroid of themselves for their own need in this particular situation.
And just okay, so there's so many interesting things. So just to recap, for our audience to make sure that we all get this. So you identified this molecule in cacao, which was very specific, that you then identified had an action on this steroid that you then discovered, which was behind the sort of, biogenesis, the sort of mitochondria, and therefore more ATP, etc. But it all started with the discovery of this molecule in cacao,
Correct.
which is amazing. And are there, I mean, how do you, because is it a flavonoid? I mean, this
Yeah.
molecule? It
Yeah,
is.
it is epicatechin.
Yeah.
It's not a secret. We have decided that, you know, let's get it out there.
Yeah.
It's epicatechin.
Yeah.
Um, and I have been studying it for the last 16 years.
Yeah.
It's actually very safe. Um, there is no side effects we know of. And based on my experience in the pharmaceutical world, where I have looked at many molecules and the metabolisms, primary, secondary metabolism, etc. This molecule has a very simple profile. It goes in, it does the work what it needs, and it gets out. Because this pulse, if it's mimicking exercise, should not be there all the time. You can't exercise 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Your body will stop. So if this is a true mimic, all it needs is that initial pulse, which starts the process and it leaves. And once the process is gone, it keeps going. So you can exercise today and still feel the effects of it 8 hours later or 2 days later, right?
Totally. Yeah.
That's it. So that's why it's safe. And like exercise, if you take too much of it, it just stops working.
Interesting. No other side effects.
No other side effects. We have given it to hundreds of people. We have studied it far. And, if you are, sometimes you will see yourself feeling energetic. Sometimes you'll feel warm. Sometimes you'll feel, so different people will have different, responses to it, but it's not detrimental. It's your system rebalancing itself.
Interesting. And so, okay, so what is it? So then around this epicatechin, this incredible molecule that you found, you then developed this startup. What is, because there are other epicatechins on the market, have they all come from yours? I mean, what's the relationship and what's your USP? What's special about your molecule, your epicatechin?
Excellent. Very good question. And this is, so they are also using epicatechin. No question about it. It's if you drink lots of green tea, you'll get it. If you eat a lot of chocolate, you'll get it. But we are approaching it from a therapeutic perception rather than simply have green tea because it's good for you, right? Aspirin, you can also get from the plant by chewing the plant, but you don't. You take a tablet, right? Because we are trying to address serious issues. And we cannot be subjective in our approach to say, well, we don't know how much you need, variation in doses. And this, you see the idea that when you just talk about supplements, they are not quantified, qualified, quote unquote, with the precisionness and the purity that you need, or the understanding of the mechanisms. None of these things have the specific precision dosing, because I told you, if you take too much of it, it'll stop working.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't take enough of it, it'll stop working. So over the years, we have figured out what is it that you cannot have in there? What is it how much it is that you have to give people? And what is it that you are monitoring in terms of outcome? We are approaching this directly, always through clinicians. We're not going out there and saying a GNC or publicizing, just take this and you'll feel. No. We are backing it up with very clear clinical data for each indication. Okay. And Kirkland, here became the challenge. Because it's the mitochondria, it has pleiotropic application from neurodegeneration, neuromuscular, mental health, oncology, metabolic disorder, and inflammation. Remember, mitochondria control inflammation.
That's interesting. You see, I'm fascinated by that. How do mitochondria control inflammation?
They are the ones that sense the stress in the cell and tell the cell nuclear processes of NF-kappa B to initiate inflammation. We talk about inflammation, but inflammation is associated with multiple interleukins or cytokines.
Yeah.
And not all are the same. The cells know which ones to release. And that all is controlled by the mitochondria through its assessment of the cellular stress it is recognizing. Isn't that fascinating?
It's fascinating. And do the mitochondria also tell the inflammation to stop?
Yes.
And so when we have chronic inflammation and sort of the cell danger response, that so the cells think that we're still in danger, is that because the mitochondria are failing to stop the inflammation?
Yeah, not only failing, but the point is that the insult is so chronic, okay, that the perpetuation takes over. And again, the stressors in the cell, which is affecting mitochondrial function, all of these things. We have shown very clearly you give this supplement and it brings mitochondrial inflammation down.
Wow. So you've shown that with clinical trials?
Yes.
Yes. Amazing. And what's the mechanism of that? So it actually, this
mitochondria are controlling it through NF-kappa B, which is the regulator of inflammation. So this is what mitochondria do.
And so the health of the mitochondria determines its ability to turn on or off inflammation in an appropriate and sustained manner, right?
How much you need, how long you need it. And inflammation is key to health. Remember, that's our first response to address things. It's just that if the insult is chronic or autoimmune, it goes crazy.
Yeah, completely. And then the health of the mitochondria is then boosted by your supplement, which then essentially enables it to respond more appropriately to chronic stressors, whether it turns on or off inflammation and the right type of inflammation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because remember, cells know better than we what they need to do. Over billions of years, they have evolved the mechanisms of self-healing, which is what we call allostasis, right? The concepts of allostasis that Martin Picard is very active, and he's done some wonderful work in that area. So the whole idea of hormesis, allostasis, salutogenesis, biogenesis is where we need to have the conversation.
Completely.
Because this is the reductionist theory is the allopathy, the anti-something, right? But that only treats the current symptom. It perhaps delays the eventuality. But we got to go back and say, how do we help our body heal itself? And one of the fundamental organelles that helps you do it is the mitochondria. That's what it's there for. If you take the mitochondria out of your cell, your cells can't make mitochondria.
And so you die.
Well, actually, that leads to the point. A cell will not die till the mitochondria decides that the cell dies. Cell death is not dependent on your nuclear genome. It's dependent on your mitochondria.
Amazing. That is so fascinating. And that's apoptosis?
Well, you call it necrosis, apoptosis, whatever. Yeah. Those processes are
dictated
by the mitochondria.
It's fascinating. Okay, so that's so interesting. And then if we look at this in the context of mental health, so neurodegeneration or psychiatric disease, we know that there's a very strong correlation between neurodegeneration and inflammation, chronic neuroinflammation. Same with, mood disorders, anxiety, etc., are very linked to sort of disorders in the immune system, and whether it's chronic infections, whether it's toxins, but something triggering that sort of those inflammatory pathways.
Yeah.
Now, we also know about sort of the metabolic psychiatry work, which really talks about the fact that mitochondria and brain energy, the energy that the mitochondria can create, are essential for well-regulated psychiatric and neurological processes, right? So in the context of mental health, how does your product work, and how, I know that you've explained it a little bit, but can we look more specifically at the process of, for instance, neurodegeneration, or the process of, maybe it's a little bit more difficult to talk about mood disorders and anxiety, but there's still a strong link.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so Kirtland, so some of that work we have done, and some is yet to be done. So brain is the critical organ. This is what it's all about, right? Everything else is dependent on brain. So mental health, perhaps we should call it the final frontier. Okay? Because if we keep your brain healthy, a lot of things follow, right? Because people with mental health also have associated a lot of muscle loss. They have a lot of metabolic disorders. A lot of things follow because your body is trying to address that mental stress constantly, all right? And it needs, now, 20% of your energy is consumed by your brain. It is the highest energy demanding organ in your system. And one of the things is it's mitochondria dense. Now, interestingly, brain mitochondria burn glucose. They will burn fats, but glucose. The reason is that the synapses have to go very fast all the time. I may not be running, my leg muscles are not working, but my brain ain't rested. And it doesn't rest when you sleep. It doesn't rest anytime. And it is doing these incredible billions of signals constantly. All right. So to me, the idea here is the addressing of this energy deficit. Okay. Because it's real. It has to be. Somebody with mental health has a higher demand of energy, but then their physical condition does not allow them to exercise. And so they go into a spiral. Okay. And we have seen anecdotal, but real evidence in people we have given this product to where responses to clinical anxiety. Okay. So the idea here is that the connection between brain health and brain energy is real. How do we bridge that? And we think that this product, because we have a very good CNS distribution, we have shown, not in humans, of course, because we can't do brain biopsies, but it definitely prevents glia inflammation. Because remember, inflammation, one of the markers of inflammation is not just that you have interleukins and cytokines, but your macrophages in the periphery have, gone to the more pro-inflammatory phenotype. Okay, so the macrophages. Now, the macrophage in the same cell type in the brain are called the glia. And the glia are inflamed. We know that epicatechin suppresses glial inflammation.
And so does it cross the blood-brain barrier?
Beautifully.
Wow.
It's beautifully. because it's amphiphilic. It has enough lipophilicity and it has enough hydrophilicity. So we call it amphiphilic. And it goes into the CNS beautifully, and it distributes, and you can. So what we are seeing in our little bit of anecdotal or N-of-1 studies, an effect on the clinical side. But we have also studied elderly mice, 26-month-old mice. And we have seen the actual improvement in their cognition and their physical abilities, because those all go together. When we talk about mental health, it's still not dissociated from the body, right? And so if we do a systemic idea of supplementing the mitochondria peripherally and neuronally, you can see a much better outcome. And you have something that is very safe. So part of that journey is ongoing, and we are really excited to be working with you and associated with you for the work you guys are doing, because it really allows for us to have a very deep conversations around these, how to assess that. I mean, you can do SPECT imaging, etc., to understand how the brain metabolism is happening, okay, through mapping, heat mapping. And then when you give epicatechin, you can see how that metabolism is changing. And you can compare it to the normal. Because see, if it is energy, then it is metabolism. And if it's energy and metabolism, then it should have a heat signal. Yeah. Right? So some very interesting ideas, some interesting simple studies that would start to allow us to have some objective readout in an area which is completely subjective today.
Yeah, and it's so important. It is pretty subjective, that's for sure. And and I'm really excited that you guys are coming to the Integrative Medicine for Mental Health conference in San Diego in September. Yeah. I think that will be wonderful. And you're presenting, and you'll be with Robert Lustig, Dr. Robert Lustig.
Yeah.
And who's very involved with your company. And, I'm personally, I mean, we're really fascinated by that correlation between, brain energy and mental health and neurodegeneration, and understanding better the mechanisms, but also giving practitioners tools to be able to help their patients and say, look, and what I love about your product is that it's just like, take this sachet, morning and night, and that's it. And, the effects on your mitochondria and on your energy production are measurable. And you guys have done the studies.
So that is the interesting part. And always, I will tell you that safety is primary. In the pharma world, and let me be a bit critical of the world I have left behind in a way, that we focus so much on the efficacy that we forget the side effects. That's why when you see commercials, yes, I will cure this, but perhaps you'll get 10 different things. The thing about epicatechin is safe. The youngest user, clinically advised user that we have is 9 months old, and the oldest is 92.
Wow.
So that tells you that, and as I said to you, we are only going through clinicians, okay? That tells you that even they accept the safety. Do no harm is the first mantra, right? This doesn't help if I help your mental health, but create peripheral problems like kidney or liver or heart. How does that help?
Completely.
Yeah. And so what we are excited about is that we understand the mechanism of how exercise helps you, at least a little bit better than before. I'm sure there's more to be learned. We have now a natural product that mimics the benefits of exercise in your hand, which is very, very safe, has been in human use for 5,000 years. But we are looking at it with precision and very clear dosing understanding, not just say, take 4 and call me in the morning, but through clinical, colleagues, patients, understanding it. Because the more data we collect around this, Kirkland, the better off we will be to continuously help patients and clinicians to treat them.
Yeah, and I mean, also, I think I was speaking to your colleague earlier, Monica, and the story of her daughter is quite extraordinary. And, I mean, that's just, it kind of blew my mind. So if you can just talk to I mean,
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
yeah. And we've heard so many other also.
Yeah.
It's not just, I mean, so that has been such an amazing outcome, but we've heard that from other parents.
And so
It
basically that
varies.
their congenital disease, their,
Yes.
genomic disease has been completely reversed.
Yeah. Yeah. And we still don't know what happens 2 years down the road. We don't have longitudinal data. We'll gather that. We're going to continue to assimilate that because our idea is not to simply sell things irrespective of what happens. Our idea is to continue to learn and say, where can we go? How can we learn? And we're thinking about other things because now that we have understood this more, this has opened up optionalities or doors as to what else can be done. How can we help different areas? Because the application is so pleiotropic. This is the reason also we decided not to do clinical trials because we would be doing clinical trials forever.
Mm.
Number two, it would raise the cost of everything. But since we have spectacular safety, Kirkland, it allows us to do the studies. And I want to tell part of your audience this part that as we head towards precision personal medicine, which is where we should go, everything is an N of 1 study.
Mm.
Think about it. When companies do a controlled study that everybody's looking for, it's a designed, contrived study. Exclusion, inclusion criteria to prove my science. But when we treat patients, it's all N of 1.
Yeah.
Right? What does a clinician do? The clinician will give Sundeep the product and then watch Sundeep 30 days and how he's doing. And in this case, because safety is not an issue, the dosing is thing, we can study that today without going back to these statistical contrived ideas and say, how do we study the real life patients in their own situation?
And that's where you've had amazing results, has been
Yes.
with, individual patients who've
Which
done.
is how we treat patients anyhow.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how we've and we are starting multiple studies with multiple clinicians in Kirkland. The support I'm getting from them is phenomenal. Same as with you, the support we're getting. And at the end of the day, it is our intent, yours and ours, to learn as much as we can, keep learning more, make it affordable, make it accessible, and let's work together between clinician, us, and the patients to bring.
Completely. Well, I mean, that's absolutely correct. And one final question before I let you go is, in the context of using this product that you guys have, this molecule, um, do, eh, have you looked at whether doing all these other things that improve the mitochondria, whether it's like eating more of a ketogenic diet or reducing stress or getting more sleep or learning, etc., and doing, I mean, some of them can't do exercise, as you were saying, or just don't want to, but then do you look at other factors that are impacting the mitochondria, or do you find that this is almost like a silver bullet?
Um, no, I'd
And then
never.
obviously that's a
Yeah,
dangerous thing to say, right?
no, I would never say anything as a silver bullet.
Yeah.
My only response to that, Kirkland, is that you will never tell people not to exercise, right? You may take the ketogenic diet, you may take all the other supplements, but you will not tell people don't exercise.
Yeah.
And to me, if exercise is good for them and they can, then this should still work. If exercise is good for them and they cannot, this is perhaps a solution for them. So I don't see any conflict there, because all we're doing is giving you the mitochondrial boost of exercise.
Yeah, completely. And what about other mitochondrial supplements, things like, magnesium and CoQ10 and other molecules that are essential for mitochondrial function? Have you ever thought of sort of putting it all into one supplement that might be, like, would it be more effective to have all these other?
No, you are. So, well, I'd like to bring you on to my scientific team because you're touching on a very good point called the furnace and fuel. Okay. So CoQ10, etc., help your mitochondria function better. But there's a limitation. And this goes back a little bit deeper into the science, but let me go ahead. So they work on the creation of the membrane potential. So to you and your audience, as you know, mitochondria burn fuel, create a membrane potential, which is then used to make ATP. Okay. Our molecule that we know of is the only one that actually affects the ATP synthesis part. Okay. So CoQ10, etc., help you make more membrane potential. But if your ATP5 is not functioning, this has no meaning. Because what happens when your mitochondria go under stress? This is a very interesting and important point for your patient, for all your audience to hear, that mitochondria not only make ATP, but in the time of stress start using ATP. So they function both as an ATP synthase and ATPase.
Interesting.
And this is all dependent on electron transport chain 5. So when you have a cellular stress that is too much, it is electron transport chain 5 that becomes dysfunctional. And none of these will work in that dysfunctional mitochondria, because the mitochondria cannot maintain the membrane potential anymore. Then they balloon, they create the transition pores, and the mitochondria die. It is all happening on the right side of the equation where ATP is made. What we do is we go and sit on that and prevent the mitochondria from going from a dimer to the ATC5 from going from a dimer to a monomer.
Interesting. And so basically, and then once you've done that, then the cell can keep getting the CoQ10 and the all the benefits of the other stuff, but without that, it can't.
Wait, because you fundamentally destroying the furnace. So I can have all the fuel, but if the furnace ain't working, nothing is happening.
Yeah.
Correct?
Completely.
And a key part of this story is that it protects the mitochondria during time of stress as best as it can, while it's trying to make more mitochondria. And there's a lot of other things. It helps clear out cellular debris. It promotes mitophagy, reduces oxidative stress in the cell. Because when the mitochondria have to do more important thing, they will not clean the house.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it happens in our lives, right? When we have a baby in the house, our house is a mess.
Yeah.
Not calling baby a negative thing, but it's a stress.
It's a stress. It's definitely a stress. Well, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, hats off to you, Sundeep, and your whole team for doing what you guys have done. And I mean, it's so impressive and it's so important. And so to find you, it's blueoakinx.com.
.com. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And ask us questions, tell us things. We are open, we are available. We're not trying, of course, we're a business. So let me be clear, to run a business, we have to be profitable. We have to manage that. But we run a business as a public benefit corporation.
Yeah.
I want to say that to you and your audience. I want people to understand that we are in it to do good and also do well for others. And and I really appreciate the opportunity you have given me today to talk about this. But as you can tell, a lot of work still needs to be done, and we are on it.
Well, I have to say, hats off, Dr. Dugar, and I cannot wait to try this mitochondrial product. I'm super excited, and I think, it sounds to me as if there's no downside, there's only upside. So,
As far as we know today,
as far as we know today.
and the worst we have seen, or you could see, we have not seen it much yet, is that it won't work.
Right.
Typically, also, we see in effect most of the time between 3 to 6 months, you start to see it.
Really?
Yeah. And you could have a very clear defined measurements associated with your clinician. We have had instances where parents have said, "Oh, we have not seen anything." But the clinician says, "What are you talking?"
Yeah.
I see a very clear benefit in this patient. And here's the reason. And then the parent goes, you're right. Because sometimes you're so close, you don't notice this gradual improvement. It's not like a headache going away that you see, right? It is it's a kind of a gradual improvement. And that's why we work with clinicians, so that they can have some objective markers that is associated specifically with that patient.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I mean, it takes a long time, I presume, to, regenerate the mitochondria and regenerate all the processes around it. And what are those markers that you work with in terms of, I mean, just a few that clinicians can measure improvement around?
So we have looked at, say, in Becker's patients, okay, we have looked at their cardiac function, we have looked at their muscle function, but then we have also done biopsies to look at their biomarkers like muscle generating proteins, oxidative stress, inflammatory markers, so heart failure markers. So we have seen, depending on the phenotype, we can look this specific to that patient
Got it.
and say, so for example, even in mental health, right? Supposing if you take a group of patients with clinical anxiety or PTSD, we can start to see that, okay, here's certain markers with these patients. We start to build a database and then start to tease out the commonality of the biomarkers to actually create some objective biomarkers associated with a clinical response.
Yes.
That's important. Biomarker alone doesn't prove anything. But if we can say, here's the clinical response, and here's this thing. So, for example, eating habits related to metabolic signal systems or whatever it is, we can start to think and discuss and because we have a tool. See, you can ask all these questions, but you don't have a tool to experiment and address and study. But what we have is we can define these plans, and we have a tool and see what comes out of it. And why can we do that? Also, again, Kirkland, comes that because of safety. Because of safety, we can go there and we have a lot of elbow room to work with.
Yes, completely. Well, that's so exciting. It's so exciting, so deep. I'm so excited about this. And we can't wait to see you at IMMH in September in San Diego. And in the meantime, I'm so excited about this product.
And I'm so excited for the opportunity. Looking forward to some conversations. Appreciate the time today from you and your team. And also amazing what you're doing at IMMH is really helping define, change, promote a conversation that's focused to the patient. So real my hats off to you also for all the effort that you're putting and that you do for this particular area, which is so badly needed.
So badly needed.
So thank you again for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Sundeep. I really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you soon.
Super. Cheers.
Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Mind Health 360 show. I hope that we've helped you realize that mental health symptoms have root causes that can and need to be addressed in order to sustainably heal, and have given you some ideas about steps you, your loved ones, or clients may take to start their healing journey. Please share this interview with anyone you think may find it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with our latest interviews on integrative mental health. If you want further information, please go to www.mindhealth360.com or find us on social media. This information is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or to replace medical advice. Please always consult your healthcare practitioner before discontinuing any medication or implementing any changes in your diet, lifestyle, or supplement program.